Hello everyone and good evening. I know we are almost at the end of the session today and the conference. How many of you have learned something new today? Raise your hand. Good, good. And how many of you want to learn more? Good. So, can you ask from the person next to you, did you have a good day? Because you're almost about to finish this, you only have one. Ask the person next to you, did you have a good day? Good. Well, if they say they didn't have one, you're going to have a great session now. Please join me to welcome our panel discussion on our topic. Today, at this time, we have is the role of technology in learning. Please join me to welcome Tanya, Vice President, Head of India Learning and Development Delivery, Royal Bank of Scotland. Please put your hands together for Tanya. Joined by, we have Raghu, Global Talent Learning and Development Leader, IBM. Is Raghu here? Oh, great. And also Jitendra, healthcart.com. Is to work there and now leads an HR executive company. And last but not least, Qazi Muhammad Ahmad, who is the President of Bangladesh Organization Learning and Development. Thank you. Aren't they amazing? Can we give them a round of applause once again? Good. So the topic that we have is the role of technology in learning. How many of your organizations use technology in learning and development? Look at the number of hands. Okay, good, good, good. The next question is, how many of you would like to ask a question from them? All right, so to start off with the question that we've got a couple of questions here, but obviously we'll also give audience the opportunity to ask some questions. And as you all know, that this is one of the biggest topic right now out there in learning and development in terms of the artificial intelligence, the technology, and in which sector you will use, which sector you will not use, to whom you will use, right? But before we go into the questions, there's a video that we would like to show all of you, because this will formulate a question during our panel discussion. The tech team, could you play a video? The video from Tanya. Yeah? Let's watch the video first, and then we're going to the... Right, so the first questions I'd like to actually ask to Tanya. To what extent your organization is using the technology in learning and development? Obviously it's a bank, but I'm sure there's a lot of opportunities there. So if you could highlight us on that.
Sure. So the first one that we are using is this, which is Soul Machine. If there is anyone in the room who have heard of this already, it's a digital human, as you saw. We are trying to see how we can use this for performance coaching. We don't have the solution yet, but we are working with Soul Machine as a company to see if they will be able to master the algorithms to help human performance coaching. So that's the first one that we are using. We have also used chatbots a lot in terms of, for learning management systems, we are just starting out. But that's something that is work in progress. We've used it for HR, chatbots. We've used chatbots for, of course, financial processes as well. Artificial intelligence curators for curriculum. How many of you have used individual learning journey or business-wise learning journeys? Can we see a raise of hands? And you would recognize the amount of work that goes into it. So these artificial intelligence tools will actually curate individual development plan and learning journeys on their own. As long as one is able to say, for example, I say I need inputs on decision making, stakeholder management, and digital analytics, and I just have 6 months. The algorithm will be able to pull up all resources available within RBS and outside RBS, whichever ones RBS have signed off or contracted with, put it all together to form a learning journey for me, which has decision making, stakeholder management, as well as digital analytics, because that was Tanya's ask of the learning journey that I'm looking at. So those are a few of the things that we're doing.
Very good. I mean, it seems that it may work very well with some industries, for example, like you from the bank, but I'm sure the rest of the audience would be like, well, I'm in a different industry and they may not work with our organization. So I'd like to ask this question from Raghu. I mean, from IBM, obviously, you deliver these models out there. to many different industries, and also within your organization you probably have. How effective is that? I mean, what's working and what's not working? So if you could answer the question more from an all industry perspective, I think would help everyone.
First of all, a small disclaimer here. I feel a little scared in a room of training and development professionals talking about artificial intelligence, talking about taking away our jobs and machine learning and all of that. But I feel very safe in this environment where we have talked a lot about purposeful purpose. Yes. And the fact that the word human in human resource development is very, very important. So while great things are happening there and great technology is leading to us enabling a lot of learning, I think what we need to also keep in mind is that ultimately it's humans we are dealing with. So there's a lot that technology can help make happen, but it's the humans in this room and beyond this room that are making it happen. So that will continue to be there. The challenge obviously is the level at which technology has continuously disrupted and at the pace at which it is doing, which we have heard about. It's very tough to keep track for an internal company environment. But when you're talking to industries, almost all of them are saying that it has changed so much for them that they're no longer an automobile industry. They're no longer an appliance industry, but they all are in the technology business. They just happen to manufacture cars. They just happen to manufacture appliances, airlines, watches, everything, cameras. So the idea is that when you use technology to enable your clients and their business, it's a different deal altogether. But when you talk about learning, I think there are a lot of areas where technology can enable that to happen much better, especially with all the amount of big data and the mining that we can do to understand what it takes for a person who just freshly joins your organization, and we want to take them from being ordinary to extraordinary, which is the constant theme that I've been hearing in this panel today.
Yeah, great. I'd like to check with Jitendra if you have any point to share on that, specifically on what works well. I think because every organization would love to use it, but what works well in your organization, especially with your experience of health card that you spent with them?
So I have a slightly different take on this. I think it is purely dependent on the context of the organization. Now, whether technology needs to be applied or does not needs to be applied is a function of the business that we are operating in. During my last engagement with healthcard.com, it was a very, very interesting example because the entire world was moving towards an online sort of world. And here was this organization, 6-year-old company, which started as a technology organization and trying to move offline. So we were actually trying to reverse the business cycle for us. So we were faced with a very, very different proposition and different challenge altogether. That how do we actually look at training, look at learning, look at development from a perspective that we are no more a technology organization. And the challenge essentially was that 50% of the population never reported to office. Right? It's a very, very interesting proposition, if we have technologists in the organization, right? We have coders, we have people operating from HQ. But just imagine, there are 50% people, who do not come to office. How do you transform their productivity levels? How do you transform their lives? And how do you ensure that their productivity levels contribute to the P&L of the organization? And that to a startup organization. Because in larger multinational organizations, we may still have some sort of bandwidth in terms of budgets and all. But a startup works very, very differently. Everything has to be closely related to the P&L. So what we essentially did is, because it was a problem statement, so it was not the question of budgets that we had. It was a problem statement because we had investors, we had board sentiments attached. So we had to look at how do we improve the productivity levels, and by force we had to look at a mobility solution. Now it was very, very different because offline and the sales side of the story works slightly different. In my experience as a consultant, not many sales organizations are that adaptable in terms of technology, although some people might disagree to that as well. But we looked at a mobility solution. It needs to be very, very simple to a sales guy, because there are sales people who are 12th pass. These are graduates, may not necessarily be postgraduates, and the kind of audience that they deal with is not at all a tech-savvy audience. So their life has to be very, very simple. The application needs to transform what they do on a daily basis. So what really worked for me, if I have to conclude this question, is the ease. Second thing is, how do we have a faster go-to-market? Because that's what a really aggressive and a growth-oriented organization looks at. So these two things were the ones which really work in our favor.
Very good. How many of your organizations where you got the most number of working team members are millennials? Good, millennials. Okay, so quite a lot of hands on there. You having a challenge in teaching them, making them learn through technology? Yes or no? A little bit, right? So the next question is around Mr. Kurzi, the Bangladesh Organization Learning and Development President. Because one of the biggest challenge I'm sure that all of you notice with the millennials working in the organization is that the focus, right? But all the millennials, they say, I want to make an impact. And most of the time, they don't really have a clue what the impact really means. If you ask them, what do you want to do? I want to make an impact. Right, and I think Simon Sinek recently, shared that in the world that a lot of millennials, they go out there and say, I want to make an impact. And when the next question you ask is, what do you mean by that? Well, I don't know, I just want to make an impact. And onto that, the millennials, guys, in your experience of working with the various organizations out there in the Bangladesh, working force, how many of them are really interested in learning through technology, or how many of them really spend time and are focused in this process?
Thank you for raising this very, very relevant and important point. I just wanted to take you for the next 30 seconds an exercise of some sort. If you don't mind, can you put your both hands like fingers protruding like this? Everyone.
Just like that. And the next, thank you. Next 5 seconds. Start.
Oh, my God! This is called emotional intelligence. Thank you very much. Yeah. So make 3 circles with both your hands in 2 different places, of course, like this. 1, 2, and 3. Brilliant! You can do that. Yeah. Second, make now squares, 3 squares like this. 1, 2, 3. Okay, actually I do 4. Actually, there should be 3. Now I ask the millennials with whom we work in Bangladesh, I guess everywhere, is with left hand make a square, of course, and with right hand make a circle. But at the same time, because you're so good at multitasking, my dear millennials, do it. Thank you. Can you try this a little bit for 10 seconds at the same time? Don't give up yet. Yeah. Anybody who can do it, maybe 1,000 rupees right away. And if you can't, 100 rupees you get back. Yeah. He said he can. I'm worried. You really want to come and show? Okay, maybe during the question answer. Okay, because I don't want to risk my 1,000
What
rupees.
we've done is clockwise and anti-clockwise at the same time. I think square and circle with a bit of training you can do it. You can actually
Yes.
program. But
The square and the circle has to be, but he can do the circle in clockwise and
I think
anti-clockwise.
that was more difficult. Clockwise and
Oh,
anti-clockwise.
I see. Okay.
Oh, 2,000
Thank you
rupees.
very much.
From there we go to the answer. Go ahead.
The last part of this is just the beginning. But unlike my fellow panelists here, I represent a country in the sense that I run a non-profit called Bangladesh Organization for Learning and Development. And 160 million people with a demographic dividend being very high, the youth population, perhaps like India as well, very high. Now the question is how to turn this mere population, which is a burden, into the fancy term of human capital. Oh my gosh, this is such a difficult challenge. And yet, 12 of us, 7 professional trainers, some CHROs, and professors together, started this venture just 1.5 years ago. And with government, we're closely working. The ICT ministry is working very hard, World Bank is supporting. So what I would say is, we are lucky that young people, millennials, are already very comfortable with their all kinds of gadgets, whether it's tablets, laptops, and of course mobile phones. So as a result, what's happening is very interesting. We are developing kind of, shall I say, schools, of course digital in nature. One is called 10-Minute School. I'm very proud of one undergraduate who even, this Ayman Sadiq is his name, who was my direct student. I used to teach at a business school. And the same institute now, IB at Dhaka University, is now partnering with IIM Ahmedabad and also IIT Delhi. I learned these are the two best in their own worlds. And they're assisting us, the IT sector in Bangladesh, to develop the human capital in that sense, so that they in turn can develop systems, process, technology, shall I say, keeping in mind the instructional design elements. Maybe this is my last point. The point I'm trying to make is technology is ubiquitous, fast-paced, everybody knows, and this video also, taken me aback. I've read about it, but this video I didn't see. I really did a good job, I must say, Mr. Moderator. But we are far away from there, of course, not even as a country, and yet we're at par. But this, you're at par meaning exposure-wise. It's not enough to have ICT literacy. It's more important to have more than that. It's like you're a user. I think there's a term for that. So that's why our challenge, and we are meeting challenge by creating mobile platforms through which people can fast-track their learning. I think that's what's exciting, that's happening, where even the global platforms and people from India can participate also. So tomorrow I have a meeting with some people in India to cut deals so that we can really fast-track this process of development through social media. Except, again, technology itself is not the solution, because often people forget how boring it can get if you don't know how to present, or for that matter, how people are so busy doing everything else, except when you ask them to learn something, then suddenly they're technology averse. But more to come, I'm sure, as we go along. Thank you very much.
Yeah, wonderful. I'm sure that everyone here reads a lot, right? How many of you read using the printed, like newspapers or books when you read? Oh my God, unbelievable. I wish that the stage is full of millennials to see that. Right? How many of you read using digital, like iPad, iPhone? Okay, good. I love reading a lot. But and the moment I start reading from my phone, I just don't get anything into here. But when I read from the book, from the hard copy, it's just the best thing that I do every single day. Right? And I had an opportunity to work with one of the largest seaplane operators in the world. Actually, they're based in the Maldives, Transworld Airways, and they implemented this technology in learning. And I'd like to share a challenge they had, because the learners are pilots, cabin crews, flight attendants, and after the orientation of one day, they're put into this learning room where they can learn all the programs from customer service. They had a problem because not a single one actually greets when the passenger goes into the flight. And we asked them what happened. Oh wow, we learned from the system, we said that you have to greet the customer when you step into the flight. But we didn't really know how it should be done. So we then have to train every single one using trainers to keep that and make them understand the emotional connection. So that's a challenge an organization could have in terms of the technology in learning. Now before we go to the audience questions, one question around how do you see the future of technology in learning and development? Not sure who would like to take the question, maybe one or two can answer. Tanya, would you like to share? Yeah.
I'm not sure whether it is particularly in learning and development, but I was reading the other day in terms of what kind of job descriptions will people have when artificial intelligence and digitization takes over. So one such thing which I found extremely interesting was man-machine manager. So each one of you sitting here, do you have the skills to manage the man and the machines working together? Imagine how it is difficult to make two humans work. So you can imagine the complexity of making a man and a robot work together. The other one, which I found extremely profound, is ethical sourcing officer, which meant that when technology takes over, organizations, a large organization will start taking decisions using technology. And therefore, the million-dollar questions, do you make decisions only on profitability or also ethical decision? And your machine can't do that. So that's when the ethical sourcing manager will come into the picture, that profitability comes in this context or ethical business practice comes in this context. The other one, and that's the last one that I'm going to talk about, is individual or personal memory curator. It can be in the medical field, very easy for us to understand, but it can be in any business. It can be in financial business like mine, it can be in manufacturing business, because with the lack of ability to remember information and also to process information, we will start requiring personal memory curators to remind us what we should do or how we should work on certain things. So these are some of the roles that can come up. The question is, are we digitally agile to learn those? I don't know the answer, but I have the question.
I think it definitely differs from industry to industry. Anyone who works in the airline industry here? Yeah. I mean, I think we all may think that aviation industry is an industry that would highly depend on technology and learning. But as you can read and as you hear, so I'm a big fan of aviation and the culture of learning that they have. I mean, we could argue, I would say I would agree that they are probably one of the industry where there's a mindset of learning, because if a plane crash happens, they will not stop until they find what happens. And in that industry, the culture of learning they're creating is that anything that is related to technology, they're going to teach you through a machine, but at the same time, a human being is involved in teaching you the same thing, so that the chance of you making mistake is probably less, because you know what to do if the machine goes fail. And that's, I think, one of the success of the aviation industry. Now, this is all about you guys, so we want to open for questions. Who would like to go with the first question? So we have someone in the business class here with the question. I'd like to, okay, and we'll go next. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Vinay. I work with a company called Aurorica. My question is on the man-machine collaboration you spoke about. One of the things we are working on is how to make man and machine learn together. So is there any work that you have done in your space where you could share examples of it?
Would you like to take the question? Yep, go ahead.
All right. So I think again, I go back to my first point wherein I said, it depends on the context of the organization, right? If you are purely, let's say, if you are from a rural or an agricultural sector, right? Then in that case, what really works is, typical the man majority combination is something, which will work. In terms of man and machine collaboration, in a slightly different space, wherein you have technology and you have man as well. Let me quote an example. I have been working with a small organization, 2 months back, and this organization is trying to look at recruitment process slightly differently. Now they have multiple problem statements. One is in terms of speed, in terms of efficiency, in terms of ease. How do we look at our employer branding? So the first statement that they wanted to actually look at it is how do we replace human intervention from that recruitment process? Now, having said that, there was a little bit of failure, success, I will not comment on that. They tried using a lot of technologies. Now, it could be a computer vision technology, it could be a VR inbuilt into that, they had some bit of machine learning involved into that as well, which gave them a good bit of accuracy and approximacy, I would say, in terms of the recruitment process. Now, here comes another interesting bit, which is that a lot of these things can be transacted and transacted again and again. That's where you can put a machine. Now, let me give you another example. Let's say cricket, all right. And the reason why I'm giving you an analogy is, if you look at cricket, most of the repetitive tasks and the learning had been replaced with technologies. Now you do not have a bowler who actually bowls to a batsman. Now you have bowling machines or technologies. Now these technologies are helping and enabling that individual to learn faster. Now the learner has also moved beyond on the learner curve. What happens is how to manage ambiguity, how to manage public pressure, how do you manage your own performance, overachievement. those sort of things are, some of the skills from a learning perspective which have moved beyond the transactional rates. So I think, it depends on the context of the organization. Now, it's a combination of where a man can work, where a man and machine can be looked at. It is purely in terms of what is the problem statement.
So we have the next question. I think the event organizer, because we have a lot of recognitions to do right after this, and I think we will probably make this the last question, but our panel will be right outside here. Feel free to ask a question. I think that will save time for all of us, and we humbly apologize for that inconvenience. I know everyone wants our questions, so I will go with the gentleman right here.
Good evening. My question is for Tanya. Two questions, in fact. One is, what is the future of classroom training? And my second question is, what should the learning and development people do to reskill themselves in terms of the onslaught that is going to come in terms of artificial intelligence and VR and so on?
If you honestly ask me, that's my worry. Because my job and my team's job is in the line. I have a big team of facilitators who do brilliant behavioral and leadership training. I'm myself one of them. But now we are consciously moving into the fact that what is it that we can provide our colleagues with. It's not one product that I have from the training and development function. That's not going to help their thirst. So what we are saying is, we will start becoming, like earlier we used to be the most trusted consulting person. Now we are going to become the most trusted curators of learning solution. Which means as individuals, we have to be extremely well aware of what to pick from where. It's not that RBS will not have every solution, but in case you come with a problem, can I quickly put together all the solutions that are possible and give it to you? And the moment you see that there is a gap there, you will stop asking me, you will start asking the artificial intelligent bot, maybe, or somebody else who knows it. So training and development professional needs to live with that ambiguity and need to upskill themselves to become more aware and start being curators of learning solutions rather than only creators or designers or developers. So develop curated material rather than developing a particular solution is how I look at it.
Yeah, very good. So I hope you found the session was helpful, all of you. As I said, we are actually cutting down the session about 50 minutes due to the recognition ceremony we have to start. If you have any other questions, feel free to, possibly will be around this area. And thank you very much, the panel. Please put your hands together for our team here.